All right, recording for YouTube. Awesome. I'm hitting that live button now. We're starting. Once we're live, we're live. Loading up. And what's up, fight fans? Welcome to another edition of Stoner versus Stoner, your comprehensive MMA and Jiu-Jitsu guide to fight breakdowns, fight predictions, and of course the fight politics that's going on in the MMA and Jiu-Jitsu world. If this is your first time viewing, make sure you check out our YouTube channel that's listed on our Facebook page. You can see our anthology, our bibliography, our entire body of work. We're on episode 17 right now, so that means that we've got 17 hours of footage after this episode. That's pretty awesome. Go check it out if you want to see what we've been about for a long time. The reason we're called Stoner versus Stoner is because we take predictions and we keep track of our predictions via the month, and we find out who the winner of the month is. We're still got one event left in this month, so it's not over yet. Although my compadre, Don Stoner, had a rough one last night. He's half the reason why we're called Stoner versus Stoner. Go ahead and give your credentials real quick.
What's up, everybody? Don Stoner over here. I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu under Higa Machado, training martial arts pretty much my whole life, and avid fight fan. Watch all combat sports events. Man, I pretty much watch all the UFCs. Kind of hard to keep track of the last ones with all the new talent. But, yeah, I own my own school up here in Washougal, Lone Wolf BJJ. If you guys want to come out and roll, for you jiu-jitsu nerds, come over, hang out with other jiu-jitsu nerds. We're here training, man.
Right on. And I'm a professional stand-up comedian, Chino LaForge, so you can kind of imagine why we're called Stoner versus Stoner. Although I'm not a fighter, I have trained, and I'm a huge fight fan. You will definitely see me watching all the events. We'll start live streaming us watching the fights together soon too, Don. That'll be a lot of fun. So let's get right into it. Before this event happened, our record stood at 3-2. Don, you had the edge on me. You had 1+ on me, and then it all came tumbling down on you in this event. I believe that was a 3-0 event for me, correct?
Yeah, it was rough for me, man.
Ooh, that's a rough one. That's a rough one. But we still have this next event, so that you still have a chance in October. I'm up 2 on you now from a 3-0. But let's go over the event, because the event was amazing. It was I think it was a great pay-per-view card. Did you enjoy this entire one?
Oh yeah, love this. This is a friggin' awesome pay-per-view card, man.
Yeah, start to finish, fireworks. I want to give some notable mentions before we talk about the main card. Was not expecting the outcome of the Alex Oliveira and Rakhmonov fight. That was a very, very surprising finish. I didn't see Alex Oliveira losing that fight, and I definitely didn't see him losing it by submission. Were you surprised by the outcome of that as well, Don?
Yeah, I didn't watch that one too closely. I mainly watched the main card because the times were so crazy on this one. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, if you could break that down, that would be awesome.
Well, to be honest, there's not much to break down. Oliveira came out as he usually does, guns a-blazing. He had a couple of good exchanges, but it really only lasted a few minutes of that, and then ended up with I forgot what kind of submission it was. It was very early in the morning for me. I was watching in Hawaii time, so the entire event started at, I believe, 5 a.m. So I'm not gonna lie, I was like Justin Gaethje on this one. I was in and out of consciousness. But another great fight to mention, though, Stefan Struve and Tai Tuivasa. Great fight. I was happy to see Stefan Struve back in the ring. It's been a while since he's been fighting. He looked good in the beginning of the fight, but Tai Tuivasa really had a game plan down designed for a much taller fighter. Did you happen to catch that one before the main event cards?
Yeah, that was a really great fight. Tai Tuivasa did everything he needed to do. Close the distance on Stefan Struve. Stefan's the tallest fighter in the UFC, and Stefan hasn't been working his stand-up. It looks like hasn't really been working his range as much, where Tai has really been trying to evolve and really coming up. Tai closed the distance and started knocking him out. And actually, that's the fight that I was supposed to drink the shoey to, not the Khabib, because Tai Tuivasa is the guy who talks about how he drinks out of a shoey.
Yeah.
Well, great fight, though. What'd you think about it, man? 2 big guys. What was your thoughts on the fight?
Well, it was great. Stefan Struve, He's a UFC veteran. He's been in the game for a long time. He had to take a break for a little while due to a heart condition, and then he came back with his previous fight. This was his second fight after a while. You know, I don't know if he's high caliber talent anymore. This game's changing. I think he was preparing for someone Mark Hunt-esque, and I think he was surprised with what he got. I think Tai Tuivasa is a little bit more evolved than his inspiration counterpart, Mark Hunt, in that he knows how to really lay on you against the cage, and he's not just going to make it a brawling fight. He's really going to utilize his tools and his talents against you, which is what Tai Tuivasa did very well. He really made Stefan Struve's advantages seem like disadvantages. You know, he took that height and made him so close to the fight that he couldn't get any torque in his punches, even if he was throwing hooks or uppercuts. There was no leverage he could get because there's no power to generate from, because he was so short-manned. He was fighting a great fight. Tai Tuivasa controlled the pace of it, and I wasn't surprised with the finish, although the time of the knockout was very surprising. For it to end in the last seconds of the first round is always exciting to watch. It comes with its own controversy too. There's some people who believe that the fight might have been stopped prematurely. I don't think so. I think it would have just been more of the same. So good fight call, in my opinion. Yeah. All right. And then we can move on to the main card. Wow. Just from start to finish, this card really popped. I don't think there was one fight on this main card that I have anything to say that isn't absolutely positive. The first fight, Magomed Ankalaev versus Ian Cutelaba. We talked about that before. The first time they engaged ended in a quick knockout. From what I got from the pre-show fight, the pre-fight show, it seems that a lot of people thought that the wrong fighter lost that first fight. Maybe it was the puncher's chance that we talk about sometimes. Every once in a while, someone lands a clean shot in the right spot, and they're not necessarily the better man, but they walk away with the better record. I think the UFC wanted to run this back because I think they see a huge prospect in Magomed Ankalaev, and they're not wrong. I think we saw the results with their second entanglement. What did you think of the fight, Don?
Good fight. I caught a few glimpses of that one. Didn't catch the full on that. So if you want to break that down, I started watching with Phil Haas on that one. I need to go back and watch the Iron Cutelaba. I kind of, I saw the clips and saw the result.
Got it.
Cutelaba actually had a fight with Cannonier too, which I just found out. But yeah, can you break that one down for me?
Absolutely. So, the UFC, I think, was really, really correct to think that the wrong fighter won that fight previously, because within the first minute, it was pretty obvious that Magomed had his number. He had just way more diverse striking angles. His footwork was way superior. In boxing, we talk a lot about that outside step. Who gets that outside step to establish the pace of the jab, and in turn, pace of the combinations and placement of range and such. Magomed has done a lot to prepare for Cutelaba, and if Cutelaba had caught him with maybe a trick that he had designed specifically for him, it had been studied and covered and drilled. There wasn't any hole where Cutelaba had seen it previously. So he just got outranged, outsmarted, and just beat up. The fact that it ended in the first round really kind of tells the tale of it on paper. But if it would have gone any longer, if there wasn't a knockout, he would have just outstruck him, outpaced him. The percentages were off the charts as far as comparison. So I think the fates have been restored, and hopefully Magomed can make his forward steps in his weight division, because he did look very good in that fight.
What's up with the UFC? The UFC needs to figure out how to do the time zone thing, man. Like, my class ended at 12, and then I jetted over to my friend's. Luckily, he had Roku, and he paused it. If it wasn't for that, I would have missed all the fights.
Oh man!
And that's one of the biggest fights of the year, man.
Yeah, absolutely. This and a card that lived up to his height as well. A lot of times you get these big cards and you'll get one or two stinkers where you're like, it was a good card. This fight didn't go the way I thought, or this fight didn't have the pace that I thought it was going to be at. But, you walk away slightly happier. However, this fight, I believe, really satisfied fans old and new, especially the next one. If you're a fan of women's MMA, then you have to have loved the fight that happened here. Lauren Murphy versus Lilia. Man, Lauren Murphy is just an absolute workhorse. She has been in the division in the UFC since, I think, pretty much its conception. She's a veteran. She's an Alaskan woman. She's a tough as nails fighter. Her forward pressure is great. You could tell she's really been tightening up a lot of her skills. And I really think she does have a shot at, or at least claiming for a title fight with Shevchenko. Now, will she beat Shevchenko? Ugh, I don't think anybody beats Shevchenko. I think she's going to pull a Khabib in the division and just dominate until she's tired of it. But Lauren Murphy does have some pretty amazing tools. She definitely deserves a ranking at 5. I think she is the number one contender truly in that class, especially after Shevchenko's already beaten the top 3. Her opponent was a very game fighter, young, very confident, had some really cool angles, was working with some really interesting tools, but she wasn't really stringing them together with combinations. She wasn't really leading them very intelligently. She was throwing a lot of energy. Kind of reminded me of Justin Gaethje's old style where he would throw big shots and you'd hear his, like he was playing tennis instead of fighting. You'd hear his grunts in every shot. And, the coaches tell you to slow it down. But Murphy has just such a consistent, heavy pace that she just used to crush her. And she had an intention of winning with submission. So she had this idea in her head because, being in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, she wanted to get a submission victory, her first submission victory in the submission capital of the world, which I think is an amazing testament and a great notch on her career. If she doesn't have her black belt yet or is still in the rankings for getting it, what a great way to possibly make an argument to your coaches for that. Of course, that's not something you argue. That's something that's given to you through trialing. But it was a great fight. For women's MMA, it was extremely exciting for all MMA. But I love seeing women's MMA fights that pan out so well because I really do think that it deserves the attention that it's starting to get. And fighters like Lauren Murphy will bring that attention. So I'm stoked for it. It was a great fight.
I don't think she's too far off asking for a title shot. Maybe one more big victory. She has a win over Roxanne Modafferi. Mm-hmm. She has a win over Andrea Lee. Those two fought. They had a really good fight. And then her other losses were against like Sarah McMahon, who at one point was a title contender. She has another loss against Caitlin Chunigan, but she's right there, man. And like you said, she sets a really strong pace. I think we both called that fight. Sets a real strong pace, good submissions. She got the RNC. I didn't know too much about her opponent in this fight. I actually would have liked to see her against a higher ranked opponent, but she's up there, man. She's like top 7, I think, in the rankings right now. The last time I checked, maybe she's went up, maybe top 5. So one more fight, and let's get her in with the Bullet.
Yeah.
Shevchenko.
Yeah. I still don't know if she holds a torch to her, though, to be completely honest. But
that's a tough fight for her, yeah.
At this point, we're just looking for meat for the grinder because that's what the champion is a meat grinder. The fight after that, we had Jacob Malkoun versus Philip Hawes. You got to catch this fight as fast as it was. Hope you didn't blink during it. What did you think of it?
Wow. All I have to say is wow. Phil Hawes with the wrestling accolades that he has really made me think it was going to be a ground battle. But he set that type of pace, man, where there was no way for his opponent to stop it. And that Phil Hawes was so impressive in that fight, man. As soon as he smelled blood in the water with the first shot, he got the second. His opponent blocked a lot of those, but it was just 2 of those shots that put him to sleep. And Phil Hawes has power, man. Mm-hmm. That's 185, right?
Yeah, yeah, and he's a big 185 too. He looks huge. He, I don't know if he took a page out of Cosmot's book or if they had a similar technique, but man, what a brilliant way to utilize your opponent's fear of one of your strengths and turning into a weakness. He did a great job in the opening of the combos by coming in with his elbows in when he initiated the combo, which to your opponent reads takedown, especially if that's what you're looking for. So his opponent dropped his hands ever so slightly, and with that shift of that slight shift of attention, he was able to capitalize like that. It didn't really take long. He really saw. I think he really saw the outcome before it happened in this one. Some fights you can kind of predict your opponent's predictions. At least that's what it looks like, and I mean that's what it looks like. He caught him
That's
off.
exactly what it looks like, man. And there's no, it's so true what they say about wrestling is one of the best backgrounds to have in MMA, because wrestling puts your opponent such in danger. And if you're training your whole camp against a wrestler, you're having to put in 80-90% of that time defending takedowns in the training room. How are you going to do when you haven't been striking? How are you going to fare in the fight when your opponent's a wrestler and then switches up and goes to striking? And Philip Haas just took advantage. Like you said, Hazmat does the same thing. It's a lot easier for a wrestler to get the striking than it is for the striker to train for the wrestler. So that just completely caught his opponent by surprise. And let's see Philip Haas in there again with another higher ranked opponent. And I hope he keeps working on his hands too, man, because that's a dangerous dude. That's a guy who, it's going to be hard to beat that guy if you can't take him down and you can't outbox him.
Yeah, and especially with the type of weight he throws around at 185. I mean, there's very few people in the weight class that can make him feel like the small man in the ring. So what a great advantage in an awesome weight class too. I mean, especially when you're talking about the other people that look big in it. I think he looks bigger than Paulo. When it comes to like side-by-side comparisons, I think he would look way bigger than him. So it's interesting to see how he bullies his way into the rankings as he picks up some more W's. Fight after that was Alexander Volkov versus Walt Harris. Do you want to start breaking this one down, or do you want to hear my 2 cents first?
Yeah, I'll break this one down, man. This fight for me made me so happy because at one I was happy, one I was sad, right? Because Walt Harris, everyone wants to see Walt Harris get a win, man. What he's been through, you want to see him get a win. For those of you who don't know, you could just look up, the news that all the stuff that happened with his daughter. Super tragic. And it's amazing that he's been able to keep training and through all that and keep training in the UFC and keep getting these fights. But, Volkov just had to do one thing, really, and that was keep Walt Harris at the end of his punches, keep him at the end of his jabs, keep him at the end of his combos. Volkov was landing a lot of nice kicks, and it looks like he broke Walt Harris's spirit in that fight more so than anything else. That the front kick that finished him looked more like a kick to the solar plex in slow-mo than a kick to the liver. And so that led me to believe that Walt was already kind of out of it. And you could see it in round 1, 2. He was really starting to fade with Volkov's pressure. And Volkov to me is like a guy who, as soon as he got signed from Bellator, immediately was like wanted to give him like top opponents. And the UFC did. The UFC gave him some really top opponents. He's only lost to one heavyweight. Can't remember who it was. I think it was one of the big punchers. Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis put his lights out. But other than that, he's been virtually unstoppable. A big guy like that with the boxing that he has, with the range that he has, can really, 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 I think, win the title at some point. I like to actually see him against John Jones. I think that'd be a tough fight. Obviously Jones has a lot of tools, but a heavyweight like that, who's as long as that guy is, with the striking IQ that he has. Walt Harris didn't have really any offense whatsoever. He didn't try to put him against a cage. He didn't try to take him down. He just played Volkov's game. Volkov just utter domination. That first round, I think, was more like a 10-8 it was just complete domination by Volkov.
Yeah,
Thoughts on that one?
I think Walt Harris's main issue is his cardio. If he could fight another 6 minutes the way he fights his first 2.5 minutes, he's very, very dangerous. Because in the first 2.5 minutes, I think there was signs of a potentially equal danger. Volkov in his movement and in his range finding and his ability to kind of feint out where your holes are. And for Harris, it was the fact that his shots, when they do land, do a crazy amount of damage. You could see even with just his chop kicks and with just some of the punches that he did have that did land, super effective. He lands with a crazy amount of pop, but he just can't keep his air, especially when he's fighting somebody like Volkov who fights at a high pressure and he doesn't turn it down, he turns it up. Volkov's one of those people that the longer he stays in the ring, the more danger you're in. I think we definitely saw that in his fight with Rosenstruck, where he was able to show you the first round where he was equally dangerous, maybe a little less dangerous than Rosenstruck, but once the second round started, it was pretty obvious who the scarier man was, and that's because of the intensity change. So I think that was on full display against Walt Harris. I think if Walt really wants to have a shot in this division or in fighting in general, he really needs to buck up his cardio, because that's the name of the game. If you don't have a killer cardio to last you for the full 15 minutes of the fight, when you're damaged, these new kids do have it. And the ones that are coming in, the ones that are going to be looking to fight people like Volkov and Harris, the kids, the young ones, they're really the ones to look out for. Not the current champs, but the future.
Well, it's like you always say too, right? When they land some shots, your cardio is going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
As they land shots, your cardio goes down. And I think that really weared on Walt. When Walt figured out he couldn't put him away in those first two, he got really disheartened in that one and really broke his heart in that one, man. And the solar plex too. I mean, that also breaks your wind.
Absolutely. That teep kick wasn't the first one that landed. Volkov had been landing that teep kick for the majority of the end of the first round and the beginning of the second round before it was the finish of the fight. He used it to find range and to keep him at distance anytime he started loading up on his backhand. Anytime he saw him plant heavy weight on his front foot, he hit him with a teep kick, which is, a traditional move, very easy. But at that weight, especially with that type of foot placement, if you really dig that ball of your foot underneath the ribs, because it's an upward kick, so the angle changes. Any kicks that come to your side, the rib cage is kind of designed to protect. But an upward kick like that comes from the inside and forces out really adds to the destruction, because of the fact that your bones stress and breathe as they take damage. And when you take a kick to the ribs, if you exhale properly, you can be fine. But if you take an angle kick like that, it really does a massive amount of damage, because it's literally pulling your structure away from your body. That's like more fight science stuff. And I don't, that's not a very consistent science, because, it's hard to stay as consistent. But that's what it looked like to me. He really caught him with a great angle, because it wasn't like perfect solar plex. It was slightly off to the side. But just the fact that his toes were angled out and the way he kicked, I think it really did some structural damage as well. Maybe even cracked a rib or something.
I could definitely see that, man. The only thing that would have saved Walt Harrison if his post-fight speech would have been like Derek Lewis, like my balls is hot.
Yeah.
I had to go number 2. Then I would have said, Walt, I'll give you a pass. But otherwise, maybe Walt should cut to 205, man. I don't know. He's pretty big, but maybe that's the next move from cut down a little bit. I think he'd be a threat if he could cut that weight.
Definitely help his cardio, that's for sure. The fight after that, Robert Whitaker and Jerry Cannonier. Excellent fight. Fantastic fight. Start to finish. 2 warriors stepped in there. And, I picked Whitaker in this one specifically because of I think I kind of felt like this was how the fight was going to play out. Just a wear down. And he did a great job of attacking the legs again. He didn't stay as consistent, but he did once he realized he messed up Cannonier's movement. Cannonier, post-fight, had said that in the first round, on the first kick that he threw, he broke his ulna, which is one of the smaller leg bones. And it really paid dividends. Robert Whitaker has really done something with his camp in utilizing cornering movement and keeping your opponent from getting movement on you. I mean, his last fight, Darren Till, and then this fight, it really shows that their focus is utilizing the damage to take away your opponent's weapons and not just to pay dividends of stamina and damage of, say, like to the head or to the body. Really effective strategy in his camp. The movement was obviously effective, and Jared Cannonier is somebody who's very based on his angles. If you're a fan of his fights, you know that he really likes to take outside angles. He really likes to trick you with his movement, really likes to use his superior speed to kind of get by you and end up on your blind sides. But man, what a great job Whitaker did. Just what a vet. He really showed his ring savvy and his control. He kept his back to the center of the octagon the entire time almost. Controlled the pace, really just picked apart Jared to the point where you saw the frustration just mount up. Although the third round was a really good one for Jared, he really tried to push the pace back. But, 3 rounds is just not enough time to pick apart someone like Whitaker. He is just a brilliant fighter, really brought his best game out too. I think mentally he's in a place that he's been striving for since his loss to Adesanya. So I think it was all around a very important victory, not just a big win, but a very important victory for Whitaker. What are your thoughts on it, Don?
Yeah, it's crazy because my prediction was that Whitaker would break his hand on Cannonier's face, and it turned out that Cannonier broke his something in his leg, his orbita or whatever you said, his
ulna.
Ulna. Broke his ulna. Ulna.
He broke his ulna.
Right? It's like a Russian grandmother or something bone. Broke it on his leg, and then he also broke his forearm too. MMA Junkie was reporting that he broke something in his wrist too.
Oh, maybe that's what it was then. Maybe the ulna's the small arm bone. Sorry about that.
Well, you saw it was jacked up in the fight. So it actually turned out, Whitaker broke him, and that's MMA. You make a prediction, and literally anything can happen. A lot of times, the opposite thing will happen. But Cannonier, like you said, if it would have been a few more rounds, I think Cannonier could have maybe if he kept at that pace that he did round 3, could have had a better fight in 5 rounds. Cannonier was landing some amazing leg kicks. He was chopping Whitaker down, and really that was one of his best tools that he used in the fight. And it took him until round 3 to start using his hands, and his hands ended up being just as great as his low leg kicks. So if he would have started, with his hands, I think Cannonier would have had more success. But like you said, Whitaker controls the timing, and that fight was all Whitaker's movement in and out. Whitaker took some big shots to the leg, but Whitaker traded every time Cannonier tried something. Whitaker countered. We didn't see much grappling in that fight. And that would have probably went to Whitaker anyways if we would have saw grappling. So I think Cannonier did the best he could have done in that fight. It was just one notch higher. Whitaker's just one level higher than Cannonier at this time. Cannonier is not ready for Israel. Cannonier, I would like to see Cannonier against Bohoshinia. What's his name? Bohoshinia, the big guy. Paulo Costa. Yeah. Put Cannonier against Costa. That would be a great fight. Those guys will get after it, man. If Costa can, really get in his face, and if Cannonier can, I think that would be fight of the night for sure. But yeah, hats off to Whitaker. Like you said, man, Whitaker's figured it out. Whitaker's put some, fixed the holes in his game. A great fight, a great fight. I was on the edge of my seat the whole fight, man, because I thought, Cannonier had some chances, had a puncher's chance, but Whitaker's just so darn technical, with his style.
Well, I think attacking his power hand was by design too. I mean, how often do we see Whitaker throw high kicks? We see him throw it sometimes. I think the last time we saw it throw was against Yoel Romero. And another example for how the 5-round fight would have gone. Don't forget how good Whitaker is when he gets in danger. When he got in trouble with Romero in the 3rd round, he came back and turned up the intensity. So that might have been what Cannonier would have had to look forward to. Who knows? That's neither here nor there. But Robert Whitaker, I think, was utilizing that power head kick not to actually try to hit his opponent in the head, but to neutralize the strength of his right arm. You block enough high kicks with your power arm, your arm gets tired. Or you break your small ulna, your baby ulna, it gets broken from a high kick. And next thing you know, you don't have that puncher's chance anymore because now you don't even have a chance to throw a punch. Whitaker really has a great camp in mapping out their opponent's strengths and how to get rid of them. I would really like to see him fight for the title again soon. I think the fight they're talking – I think Paulo Costa is trying to fight Whitaker. I don't think Whitaker's interested. That's the talk in the MMA world right now. Whitaker's not talking any fights until after December, after he's had Christmas with his family. He's got a new baby on the way. He's got family time ahead of him. He's not really thinking about the fight game until come January, February, when the bill for the Christmas credit cards come in. I don't think Paulo Costa's next for Robert Whitaker. I think it all depends on who Adesanya picks for his next fight because he's going to have to fight soon, especially for how he won his last fight. He's not injured. He has no reason to curtail anybody. It's fight time. Sign on the dotted line. Let's see how good you still are so that we can justify some type of rematch or something else in the future. Because when you're not injured as a champion, you got to keep it moving. I'm really interested to see what happens with him and Jones too. Who knows? That's a coin flip. That might not happen for another year if it ever does. Let's get to the main event, the coup de grace, the piece de resistance, the big fight of the night, big fight of the morning, I should say. It was really weird. It was really weird finishing the fights at like 11 a.m. my time. And then normally I go have, a beer or something, but that's not the case. I didn't want to have an 11 o'clock beer. Wasn't feeling it. But Khabib versus Justin, Nurmagomedov versus Gaethje. You picked Gaethje. I picked Khabib. The bet on the line was a shoey, which we will save for the end of the show.
Ozzy. Oi.
If you're tuning in, Don owes me a shoey.
That's literally the only reason my wife's watching this show.
I know. That's the only reason some people are watching. So we're going to keep you to the end. You got to listen to us talk. No, it was a great fight. I think in the pre-fight, I think you let your emotions get a little ahead of you on your bet here, Don. I think deep down inside you knew Khabib was going to win this fight. I'm just picking at you. I think I said it best when I think the Poirier versus Gaethje fight was the biggest indication of how this fight was going to go. What did you see once the bell rang?
Once the bell rang, we saw Justin come out with a great circular movement. We saw Khabib waiting. If you remember from my prediction, I said Khabib's chance, among other taking him down, is going to be to break up his rhythm, not just run in and try to take Justin down. And he did that. He boxed with him. So we saw Justin moving around, circling a lot, and Justin was landing some really, really good shots, but it looked forced. It looked like Justin was starting to tire himself out with Khabib's pressure, like most of the time. And this was stand-up pressure. This wasn't ground pressure. This was just Khabib chasing him down, taking Justin's best shots. Justin landed some shots that have put away a lot of people, and Khabib kept walking through them. Landed his uppercut, landed his hook, landed his chopping low kick. Khabib kept still walking forward. Round 2 came around, and in between rounds, Justin's corner said, hey, breathe, slow it down, focus. That was really made me happy because at the end of round 1, when Khabib mounted him at will, Justin was pretty tired. And then round 2 came out, Justin slowed it down, looked like he was landing a little less shots, but they weren't as forced. It was more natural. It looked like he was really, really doing good. And then I kind of saw Khabib start to, actually get concerned a little bit. Khabib, I think at a certain point was like, Khabib landed some jabs, like the cornerman said, but those jabs aren't going to do anything to Justin. Those jabs are only meant to get a takedown. And so, Justin was landing good in round 2. Early in round 2, though, Khabib got the takedown. I was very disappointed to see that Justin had no jiu-jitsu whatsoever. Zero jiu-jitsu. Literally not even the most basic framing on the bottom, not the most basic guard retention. Justin Gaethje had no jiu-jitsu training, at least for this fight. We never see Justin Gaethje in jiu-jitsu battles because usually he'll scramble out of the guy trying to take him down, and he couldn't with Khabib. Khabib laid on him like a wet blanket. Khabib pushed straight to mount. Khabib's choice of submissions were really, really intriguing to me in this fight. The first round, he went for an armbar, and then he ended up getting a bicep crush. Then he said he didn't want to break Justin's arm in front of his family, whatever. I just found out about that tonight. I was rolling with somebody, and then my student told me about it in the middle of a roll.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because I've been trying to do Khabib's moves when I'm rolling now. Whenever I see this stuff, I want to see how he did it. Mm-hmm. And then round 2, when Khabib went for the triangle, his second submission choice, amazing, beautiful. A triangle from the mount. He switched a different angle. He popped his hips a different way. Normally, you just sit on the chest when you go for that triangle from the top, but he hit the angle like it looked like he was going for the armbar. Then he closed the legs. At that point, there's no way to get out of that triangle.
Yeah.
For guys that are watching who are jiu-jitsu or MMA fighters or whatever, triangles from the top from mount are far easier to get than triangles from the bottom. So if you want to get triangles, hit them from mount. And like I said, Justin had absolutely no submission defense. Even when the guy's mounted you and going for the triangle like Khabib did, you can tuck your arm in. You can go 2 arms underneath the legs, roll it over. Justin did nothing. He did absolutely nothing. Again, he didn't train for jiu-jitsu. He trained wrestling defense, and he couldn't stop Khabib's takedowns. Both of the takedowns landed.
No, and I think Justin realized early on in the second round after Khabib did get that takedown that he had no gas left in the tank, that this was going to be a long fight, and I think Khabib might have thrown him a submission of mercy. He kind of gave him like we're competitors. Here's your ticket out. If you don't take it, I'm going to hurt you for 5 rounds. Because if you're that tired already in the second round with Khabib, there's only 4 more rounds of that. And I mean, we've seen how dedicated he is to his goals. We've seen what he's willing to do to people that he likes in the ring, where he's talking to him like, come on, brother, quit. I want this more than you. He's not afraid to tell you how badly what he's willing to do for the victory. And at that point, I think Gaethje might have seen a doorway out, because I agree. The lack of jiu-jitsu was almost suspicious. I mean, he's a top-level fighter. He's got very strong wrestling. When you're being mounted and somebody jumps to S-mount, there really is only so many submissions that one could go for. Granted, they're already so far along in the process of the submission that you're already kind of in a very bad position. But, I mean, what are the possibilities when somebody climbs S-mount? Triangle, armbar.
That's it.
So he knew what to look out for. He didn't even answer the phone. He didn't even attack the lockup. And I'm no jiu-jitsu expert. I'm a blue belt at best. I know how the basic defenses, and he didn't utilize any of them. And I did find that to be a little suspicious too. I think
where was Justin Gaethje's jiu-jitsu? Justin Gaethje had no jiu-jitsu defense in this fight, and wrestling defense too. He didn't really have any wrestling defense. Once Khabib got his double leg, once the legs are together and Khabib goes for that leg lace, it's really tough. One of the only ways to defend that is with jiu-jitsu. Now, Dustin Poirier actually had a decent defense. He was utilizing his guard. Dustin Poirier had a guard, and then Dustin Poirier also was attacking with guillotines. Mm-hmm. Even Conor McGregor has better jiu-jitsu than Justin Gaethje. Not to say that Justin Gaethje is any jiu-jitsu guy. Conor McGregor is actually higher ranked than Justin is in jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it just makes you wonder. I mean, there's no framing, there's no hip bumps, there's no hip escapes, there's no guard. And I don't know, man. And the pre-fight for me too, Justin wasn't the same Justin Gaethje where he's just like really hungry.
Mm-hmm.
He was like really almost like over respectful of Khabib, and and he was more like about like just happy that he was there instead of really trying to get it after Khabib. So I don't know if maybe he already just thought like there's no way he's gonna win. But it's tough to say. I'm still holding out for Michael Chandler.
Yeah.
If I have to drink 2 shoeys from Michael Chandler, I'll do it.
And I think I might be betting against Michael Chandler because the longer it takes for him to get a fight, I don't know why, the more I'm getting whiffs of a hype train that I'm not hopping on.
You will not take Khabib will not take down Michael Chandler like he did Justin Gaethje. I can guarantee you that, because I have never seen anybody take down Michael Chandler.
Well, it may never happen with Khabib because Khabib, if you didn't watch the fight, Khabib, he took off his gloves in the ring, and retired. And when you retire and you don't take off your gloves in the ring, that leaves you kind of open to coming back. But when you take your gloves off in the ring, that's kind of like a sacred, like that's the last time you're supposed to fight in a ring. What are your thoughts on that, Don? Do you think Khabib will stay retired?
Well, first off, GSP's not coming back. Second off, Khabib just needs to get approval from his mom. It's like Dana White was, it's like Dana White. Dana White's just like, yeah, let's give him some time. Let's let him, Khabib shouldn't have fought this fight. Khabib needed more time, again, to handle the emotions with his father's loss. Everybody knows how important that was to him. But he took the fight. Hats off to him. He retired in the ring. I definitely think that he's more likely to stay retired than someone like Henry Cejudo. We're going to see Henry Cejudo fight again. Mm-hmm. Khabib's, I don't know, like 30 or something. I think we're going to see Khabib again. If it's not in Russia, a super fight. Fedor did some M1 fights in Russia afterwards. But even Khabib is like, now supersedes Fedor, man. And now we're talking about if he's the greatest of all time, does he have any blemishes in his career as far as PEDs, as far as nothing? Khabib's as clean as they come. And for me, that means a lot when you're talking about greatest of all time, when you're, him versus John Jones. Anybody who is a true sportsman or a true fan of the sport is probably going to say Khabib being undefeated with the dominance that he had is probably greatest of all time. John Jones is saying that he fought tougher opponents to get that greatest of all time title. So with that, you kind of have to look at who each of the guys fought throughout their dominance. If John Jones goes in and wins the heavyweight title, then John Jones is going to go greatest of all time. But, Anderson Silva said it best. There is no greatest of all time because there's always the next guy who's going to come, and there's always the new generation. There's the greatest of that time. Anderson was the greatest of his time. John was the greatest of his time. And now Khabib, I think Khabib and John are kind of in the same time, so it's hard to say who's the greatest of all time. When a guy's 29-0, man, and defeat, and puts on the dominance that, greatest of all time, hasn't lost a round. I think, maybe Wade's in his favor because we know John Jones has lost rounds, if not almost lost fights, way closer than Khabib. I mean, some of John Jones's fights. You go, hey, Dominic Reyes almost beat him.
Alexander
Gustafsson almost beat him, right? So what are your thoughts on that, man? Do you think Khabib's going to stay retired?
So as far as Khabib's retirement, I think the way you worded it is the best. Until his mother says that he can fight again, I think he's out until he gets his mommy's permission slip. But I think he might stay retired. Honestly, he's got his brothers. He's got his cousin. They all are about to have some very successful MMA careers. as far as money goes, the Magomedovs don't really need more because they're already started an expansion of their well project for a lot of African countries, as well as a lot of Muslim Islamic countries. So he's donating most of his money anyways to movements, which I think is amazing. The dude's amazing. I think he will stay retired. I think that in his father's honor, it's the best for him to stay gone and to keep that record unblemished and to keep one of the Nurmagomedovs permanently undefeated, so the rest of them can live their careers like crash test dummies and maybe lose a couple fights without that type of pressure on their shoulders. But really to cement the Magomedov name, like the Gracies did with the UFC. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more Magomedov schools of martial arts popping up across the world, kind of like the way the Gracies did once they got their exposure. And this is going to become something much larger for him than the UFC career itself. So hats off to him. Now, as far as the argument, I think we're talking about pound for pound or the greatest of all time, because the greatest of all time can't really be measured. That is an opinion piece that's meant for conversation. Nobody's ever, like you said, nobody's ever the greatest of all time because somebody will eventually beat your shit. They're going to beat your record. That's what happens. But pound for pound is something that's quantifiable currently. And that's the argument that I think is really being had across Twitter, blah, 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 is the fact that Khabib just was launched into first place for the pound for pounds. Now, John Jones disagrees. He thinks that pound for pound, he's the better ranked fighter. But you got to look at who's done the heavy lifting lately. Khabib has finished his last 3 fights. There was no leftovers on the dinner table. John Jones has got decisions in his past 3 fights. So when it comes to pound for pound, that really affects the decision of the rankings. Now, will John Jones stay at second place for pound? No, because he's still going to fight. If he's still going to fight, he only has a chance to keep doing the heavy lifting. And eventually, Khabib can't stay in the pound for pound because he's no longer competing. If you're not competing, you're not in the argument for pound best. So as far as that conversation goes, temporarily, yes, I do agree with Khabib's pound for pound ranking. Greatest of all time? Hey, man, not even Jordan is considered the best by everybody. Some people will still say Kareem or Wilt Chamberlain. Some people will say Kobe. Some people will say LeBron. So, who is the best? I think that's for us to argue over, for us lessers to argue over, and for them to actually fight over for our entertainment.
Yeah, exactly, right? Pound for pound, like now Khabib is going to be pound for pound for a while. All you guys saying Khabib should fight GSP on the share. Again, GSP is not fighting again. So that's not going to happen. No. I'll drink 4 shoeys if GSP fights again. Don't hold me to that, but I will.
You're like, that's a lot of 2 beers.
GSP not fighting again, guys. Come on. Yeah. But look, pound for pound versus greatest of all time, like you said. For me, I'm more interested in who's the greatest of all time if you're looking at this, because like you said, Khabib's going to be pound for pound now, and then John Jones is going to be pound for pound because John Jones going to keep fighting, right? So John Jones is probably going to take pound for pound eventually, in the short term if Khabib, takes some time off and stops fighting. But look, Khabib's a type of competitor that if Michael Chandler comes in or Ferguson shakes off his funk and comes in and does a 10-fight win streak, people are going to be saying the only person he can fight is Khabib. Let's get Khabib back in. Meanwhile, Khabib's still 32. He's still going to be training. And if Khabib still has that hunger that we know he has in him, Khabib will probably get back in there. So I'm not ruling out Khabib's return. I just think he needs a good time, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. But I think we're going to see Khabib back in it. And, and if he doesn't stay in it, that's great because he did something that few men can do, getting out on the top. You had Matt Hughes that, was pretty close, but he still took a couple fights before he went out on top. You had GSP who went out when he was on top and then came back and had a couple fights and proved that he still had it. And I think we can see that with Khabib. I think Khabib will take some time, and then when the next guy comes up, he's going to prove that he still has it. And we'll be able to see if again, he still has. I know Khabib's not going to stop training. That's
No,
part of his
no.
lifestyle.
I think Khabib becomes his father. I think Khabib takes the place of the patriarch of the school and teaches the next generation. We would have no Khabib Nurmagomedov if it wasn't for his father. And I think that he understands that just as good as anybody else and knows that there needs to be somebody in that fatherly role because his younger brother and his younger cousin need him. They're still not fully developed. They're still not Khabib level. And I think that he's really going to take that role very seriously. Now, once they become champions, would he possibly step in the ring again? Maybe. But I don't think we're going to see him for a long time, especially if we don't have another person in the weight class that stirs his interest. If we don't have another dominant champion in the next 3 years, I don't think Khabib comes back. Because if there's no challenge, there's no reason. Why would he risk his perfect record if it's not against a potentially fellow perfect fighter? There's just no reason. Money, yeah, he's a competitor. That would be the only reason, is the fact that he feels the itch to compete again. And that would honestly be a pretty good reason to lose too, because that sounds like a pretty prideful reason to get in there in the first place. But we'll see. I'm pretty stoked on his career thus far. So regardless of whether we see him again or not, kudos, man. What a wonderful career. What a great way to end it. What a great exclamation point on the end of a tale. So before we talk about the UFC event coming up this Saturday, just want to give a shout out. Bellator 250 is happening tomorrow. There's a couple of fights that are worth watching. There's a couple of snoozers. There's a couple of ones that you're not sure about. But it's definitely worth watching, especially if you don't have anything to do on a Thursday night. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Zach Zane. He's a Maui fighter. He's going to be fighting on that card. So,
oh snap!
Yeah, he's been working his ass off for a long time. I've been following his success for a long time. Even a couple losses, but that's what you do in support a fighter. You stand by him. And
what camp is he from?
I don't know who he's fighting with currently. I don't.
Gracie, probably a Gracie gym up there.
I couldn't say, honestly. I don't want to misspeak, so I'll do better research next time. But okay. Zach Zane's a hell of a fighter. I've seen him fight in person live. Man, what an exciting fighter! If he's listening, if he's got anybody's camp listening, dude, we're pulling for you. You get the pick regardless. We love you, man. So the UFC fights coming up are going to be some. It's going to be a little bit cooler than the last one. It's not going to be red hot like UFC 254, but how could it be? When you have a card like that, sometimes you got a cool down card to tamper your expectations down. Although this is still a great fight card. There's a lot of potential slobber knockers, as good old JR would say. The opening fight of the main card, we got Bobby Green finally stepping in the main card spot. Good to see you, Bobby. He's going to be fighting Thiago Moises. Who do you have in that one?
Man, that's a good fight. For anybody who doesn't know Thiago Moises, he's a really good jiu-jitsu fighter. And he's really put the pieces together. He's a good stand-up fighter, good kickboxer. And then you have Bobby Green, who's on an absolute tear. So I'm going to go with Thiago Moises only because last time Thiago Moises, I saw him fight, he got a heel hook. He did a jumping heel hook on the guy. Yeah. He jumped in and got a heel hook, and that was a really sweet move. So, I think it's like 80% Bobby Green's going to win that fight, but I think that other percent, 20%, I'm going with Thiago Moises. Brazilian fighters always have your back. You guys know that.
He is a great fighter. I did see that leaping heel hook. That shit was amazing. I'm not gonna lie, that was real fun to watch. But I hear a hype train to come in. Chugga, 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 chugga. Bobby Green. I'm on the Bobby Green hype train. I have been since his past 2 fights, and he has not disappointed. Bobby, I'm on the train. Let's go, Bobby Green. I think he's gonna get the job done. I think he's going to fight a smarter fight than he has in the past too. I think we're going to see an even more evolved Bobby Green as he continues to put the tools in his fight game. After that, we have Maurice Green versus Greg Hardy. As much as I despise Greg Hardy. I'm really not a fan. I'm not gonna lie. I can smell fake hype coming a mile away, and this is just
From Greg Hardy?
yeah, it's
He's the real
manufactured.
deal. He's the real deal, man.
No, yeah, I agree that he is an athlete, is the real deal. But the hype that's being promoted for him, I smell it fake. This is not authentic hype. This is generated hype. This is company man hype. This is Dana White's presented hype. It's not hype that you can. He's trying to bottle hype and sell it with Greg Hardy, and I don't like that. But I do like Greg Hardy in this fight. I do see his progressions in the gym. I follow him on social media just to keep the betting lines, because if you're a bettor on these fights, he's a great one to have on the card because of that hype train. The hype train's rolling, but he's also underdeveloped. So when it comes to the favorites, he gets a pick 'em sometimes in fights where he shouldn't. So if you're a betting line person, Greg Hardy's a good fight to bet on, and he's been winning a lot. I'm not gonna lie, he's been consistently winning. I think he's got the tools for Maurice Green, so I'm picking Greg Hardy. What about you?
So I always picked against Greg Hardy kind of for the same reasons, but he's kind of growing on me like a changed man growing type of deal. His past, is not something that I support whatsoever. So, but at the same time, when I look at Maurice Green did have a win over Gian Vellante. He submitted him with an arm triangle choke.
Yep.
He lost to Alexei Olnik by submission. He had another TKO loss. He had a 3-fight win streak when he started the UFC. So he trains out of Jackson Wink. So, sorry, he trains out of Performance Compound. I don't know those guys. So anyways, I'm going to go with Maurice Green on this. As I am now kind of starting to warm up to Greg Hardy. I like he kind of's taken this mean face. He's kind of getting into it, and he has his own little villain type thing about him. And he's a terrifying dude. And he's an NFL guy who you're just like, there's no way this dude's ever going to win a fight. But somehow he trained hard, and he's a hard worker, man. You could say anything about Greg Hardy. He's a hard worker. And that's what I like about Greg Hardy. But I think this matchup's kind of bad with him, being that Maurice does have a more well-rounded game with his submissions. So I'm going to go with Maurice Green on this one by sub.
See, I think even that little character that Greg Hardy goes with is a fix. I think he's got some type of image consultant or something going on. The fact that he turned heel the way he did feels a little WWE to me. I feel like he's being coached. I don't like that. But I do like the fact that he is raw talent. That is something that you can't hype or bottle job on. That is something that's true. He is extremely raw talent, and he's had enough time to train now. So maybe that raw talent's refined a little bit. And I've been waiting to see that in heavyweight so that we can finally see him get some opponents with some numbers next to the name. And I think that Maurice Green is a great step in that direction. I think Greg Hardy's been working really hard in his off season, so to speak. And I think he's going to come away with the victory just because of the fact that those NFL guys know how to work, man. When it comes to learning a new skill, a new talent, they thrive off of it. And if they can stick with it, man, they learn quick. So I'm going with Greg Hardy on that. After that, we got Kevin Holland in a replacement fight. It was going to be Makhmud Mardov, but that fight got canceled, unfortunately, and it's now going to be against a debut fighter. Unless you want to select the debut fighter on a Hail Mary.
What's the guy's name?
Let me double check. I have it ready. I was ready for this. He's fighting. What's his name? Charlie Ontiveros. He's a
Brazilian.
Yes.
Okay, now I've seen this guy fight before.
Yeah, I believe he was. He does have wins in Bellator, I believe. But
he's a Bellator guy.
This is his UFC debut. What do you think?
Man, I got to go back and see who Ontiveros. Okay,
It's a
so
very last minute switch. Very, very last minute. I don't know how this fighter was going to make weight for it. It was such small time. Must be a fighter coming up a division to fight. Uh, I don't know, man. That doesn't look like good odds. A debut on a short notice fight. Ugh. Those are all the chemicals for a bad outcome. So
yeah, no, there's no way this dude's winning.
no, I'm saying it's a huge Hail Mary. I mean, you are down by 2. So
Yeah.
if you're just trying to rack up potential points, this could be one to cover the Vic.
Yeah, but I'm not going to pick him. No, he's not. I was thinking of a different Brazilian guy. This guy lost to Michael Page a while ago. Michael Page from Bellator is a dynamic striker.
Yeah.
And no.
He's going to get smashed. Kevin Holland's on a tear right now, and he's going
Holland's
to tear.
Active. Holland's in the rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to tear him up. Fight after that is Bryce Mitchell versus Andre Fili. I was going to go with Bryce Mitchell just because he's a high hype job. Not going to lie. He's got, 9-0 in the UFC? Fun, or 9-0 in MMA. Fun to watch. Great kid. His last fight was decision, but the rest have been really, really dominant victories. But then I look at who Andre Fili's fought. Andre Touchy Fili. And then I look at, it goes all the way back to Max Holloway and Miles Jury and even Artem Lobov, the greatest fighter ever. Some of his losses. Some of his losses are to Yair Rodriguez, Calvin Kattar, Michael Johnson. Great fighters. So I think his ring experience really puts him at a high edge favorite for this fight. What do you think, Don?
It's tough because Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell, he has his own camp. He has his own style. He's excellent at jiu-jitsu, guys. I mean, Thug Nasty, this guy is the man at jiu-jitsu. His fights, go back and watch some of his fights. And I called against him before, so I'm going to go ahead and pick him. This one's for jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
It's tough to pick because, like you said, Fili is on a tear. Fili is just starting to feel his skills now, man. I mean, like you said, the wins that he's got, he evolves every fight. He's with a tough team with over there at Uriah Faber's crew, at Team Alpha Male out in Sacramento. But Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell is just a unique dude in grappling, And when I see somebody like that, I like to really get behind him, and I really like to study their game. And he's so unorthodox in the game. If he can get Fili down, he's going to submit Fili. And that's a tough fight for Fili or for anybody for that matter. A guy as confident as Bryce Mitchell is, this is Bryce Mitchell's shot. So if I'm going to get behind a hype train, I'm going to go with Mr. Thug Nasty.
Hey, if he wins this fight, I am on Thug Nasty hype train for sure. You know me, Don. I love a good hype train. I'm always looking for the next train out of town. And if he's the one, I'm going to be tooting that horn so hard the second he wins this fight. But he's got to show me something. He's no Cosmat. He's no Cosmat. Well, right off the bat, I was charmed. I need to see more. Although his last fight was against a great opponent, and although it was a decision, he fought at a really great pace. And it showed that he can fight a long fight. So that was really good to see. Final fight of the night, awesome one. Uriah Hall, Anderson Silva, Clash of Titans, a legend versus not necessarily a replica, but definitely we don't have a Uriah Hall without having an Anderson Silva. Much like how you don't have a John Jones without Anderson Silva, or modern MMA without Anderson Silva. To be completely honest here, he's responsible for a lot. I'm going to go with Uriah Hall on this one. What do you think, Don?
I'll take the Spider.
Take the Spider.
Make it interesting. I need some wins, brother.
But what do you think? And we know what you're choosing out of desperation because you want Mr. October just as bad as I do. I know you do. But what is your motivation? Who do you think is going to win this fight?
You know what? Uriah Hall is for me a letdown in the UFC. You know, Uriah Hall was supposed to be the next Anderson Silva. He was supposed to be Israel Adesanya, but every once in a while you'll see Uriah Hall with flashes of greatness. You know, Uriah Hall will come out with his spinning back kick and knock somebody out, and then you'll see the Uriah Hall. It just doesn't even look like he wants to be in there, and that's what he's been struggling with. You know, I mean, if we're to look at the last couple Uriah Hall's wins, I mean, I can't even tell you who he's beaten. But I know that this is the last of the Spider Anderson Silva's fight. He actually has 2 fights on his contract, but he just wants to do this fight. But he wants to test free agency. He doesn't want to stop fighting. So what that tells me too is he's not done fighting. You're not going to see the end of Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva wants to end this on a bang. And, you know, unfortunately, Anderson Silva, with how old, you know, obviously his age and everything, it's going to be tough for Anderson Silva to pull off something spectacular. But you know what? I'm going with Anderson on this just based on a stand-up battle. I think Anderson is way too savvy for, you know, anybody at this point to knock him out unless it's like with a crazy leg kick or something. You know, Uriah Hall's would be smart to attack Anderson's legs, right? Because Anderson's had that freak accident with Chris Weidman. He also lost to Jared Cannonier, TKO by a leg kick. His legs are susceptible. So Uriah Hall should really chop down the legs. And but anything else, you know, spinning techniques, boxing, everything goes to Anderson. You know, power and maybe just a younger athlete, a harder body is harder body, but as far as like just a stronger
physique. Oh, you're right.
Yeah, I think goes to Uriah Hall. But I think Anderson, I want to see Anderson come out with a bang, and I'm going with Anderson on this purely because I love Anderson Silva, but also because I think another side of things is that Anderson is just way more well-rounded in striking. I don't see Uriah Hall surprising Anderson.
Yeah, I love Anderson Silva. I just don't want to see him fight too far past that line. You know, I would hate to see a Muhammad Ali incident with him where the greatest gets into the ring just one too many times and suffers that one knockout that really affects him for the rest of his life. Because when you're younger and you get knocked out, there's some repair work that your brain can do on its own. But once you reach a certain age, there's no repair work. It only gets degenerative. So I worry. Anderson Silva, I worry about him. Much like how I worried about Chuck Liddell when he fought Tito Ortiz again. And lo and behold, he did get knocked out pretty bad. So hopefully there's better days ahead of him and it doesn't affect him in the future. But you can see that he's slowed down significantly. Anderson Silva, you can see that he's slowed not as significantly, but he's not as fast as he once was. He's not as fast as even as he was against Chris Weidman. And I don't know if that was the peak Anderson Silva. I think he should consider stop fighting soon. I know Dana won't fight him and assign him any more UFC fights anymore. He said that on record. So I think from this point on, if Anderson wants to do any fights, it's going to have to be super fight, circus fights. Maybe he'll get some of those IBC craziness boxing fights, or who knows what's going to happen for him. Who knows what the future holds. But he deserves to retire with some grace and dignity. So I hope his final fight goes well. But I do think Uriah is going to win. He's got his number. He's been studying his tricks since he was a kid. He's got the tools. He's got the assets. He's got the abilities. And he's just on his way up. It's his turn. I think it's time to pass the torch, and I think we're going to see that come Saturday night. All right. That's it for the predictions. Don, do you have your shoey ready?
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, I made the most stupid bet in the world against this man, Curtis LaForge. This is not virtual reality, ladies and gentlemen. This is real.
This is real. Real beer, real shoe.
I have my shoe.
Hold on. Is that a new shoe or is that a worn shoe?
This is worn, my brother.
Whoa, bold.
My old work shoes. That's actually what I wanted to use it for because I don't have to go to the office anymore.
Right.
But now I got my Adidas have my beverage.
Let's see it.
Make sure I don't get it on my love sack.
Yeah, or get a towel. Get a towel ready if you need to. That's fine. I'll give social media while you go grab a towel if you need to.
No, we got this, bro.
You got this? All right.
Probably going to soak up all in this. So over here.
Ozzy, Ozzy, Ozzy.
Ozzy, Ozzy, Ozzy. And make sure you can see me pour it. Oh, snap. It's pouring everywhere.
Oh. There we go.
Ah!
Bet fulfilled.
Poured all over my whiskey. Oh. That is so nasty. So I just poured Diet Coke because I wanted to see it. And it tastes like fun.
Oh man, that's the thing about Coke and Diet Coke too, is that it's like a stripping agent. So you just clean your shoes.
Oh my
God. Oh God. I respect you, fella. You made a bet. You kept your end of the bargain. I appreciate it. Had I lost the bet, I would have done the same. But.
There was literally sand in my shoe that I just drank, ladies and gentlemen.
I admire your dedication.
So nasty.
You truly are a competitor, worthy of being a champion, my friend. If you want to, Don, if they want to check you out on social media, where could they find you?
Check me out on social media. I just want to say some people that your Hawaiian friend who's fighting in Bellator is actually fighting against Nick Newell. Mm-hmm. Somebody posted on the forum. So that's pretty cool. Nick Newell only has one hand. Nick Newell's the Bellator fighter that only has one hand. He has a
right.
That's going to be a good fight because Nick Newell fought his way on Bellator and proved that he's a real fighter. Dana White didn't want to sign him after he had a great fight in the Contender Series, but Bellator picked him up, and now he's fighting your Hawaiian boy.
Yeah, he's bad too. He's a bad dude. Yeah. Man, that's going to be a good one. I'm even more excited. Thank you for the heads up post on the forum, friends.
I'm going to watch this one.
Yeah. So, that's tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern, I believe. So check your local listings, crackstream.com. Just wherever you can find it. Don, where can we find you? Social media, where can we find it?
Find me at dstoner_LWJJ Lone Wolf Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram, Facebook. Find me on Facebook, but otherwise just find me on Stoner vs. Stoner, guys. I mean, we're giving you podcasts. We're trying to make it interesting for you guys, give you guys some more insight. So just hit me up on Stoner vs. Stoner. Always appreciate you guys' comments and likes, and let's keep it going, man.
That's absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. We appreciate you. You can find me at Chino Bra. That's ChinoBrah. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, all those good stuffs. You can also find me on Oculus at Chino Bra if you're a VR person. I'm doing virtual reality comedy. My next show is tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the AltSpace app. Just go to AltSpace and look for the Failed to Render show, and I'm on that one. It'll be a fun time, guys. Come check it out if you're a virtual person. If you're a real person, though, watch these fights this Thursday as well as this Saturday. Check back in with us next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for more Stoner versus Stoner. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. Enjoy the fights, and aloha.